My husband humiliated me by calling me ugly in front of his friends at a restaurant, and as if that wasn't enough, he ran off and left me to pay the bill. Before continuing the story, let us know in the comments which city you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you won't miss more stories, and leave your like on the video. I should have known something was wrong when he chose the restaurant. After 2 years together, my boyfriend had never taken me anywhere that required a reservation, let alone somewhere with cloth napkins and waiters who knew the wine list by heart. But when he suggested meeting his work colleagues at Romano's Bistro downtown, I actually felt excited. Maybe he was finally ready to include me in that part of his life. I spent an hour getting ready, choosing a navy dress that he'd complimented before and doing my makeup carefully. When I arrived, he was already seated at a large round table with 4 other people, 3 men and 1 woman, all dressed in expensive-looking suits. They looked like they belonged there, in a way that made me suddenly conscious of my department store dress. "There she is," he announced as I approached, but his tone wasn't warm. "Everyone, this is my girlfriend I was telling you about." The introductions were awkward. His colleagues seemed polite but distant, and I noticed how he positioned himself slightly away from me, like he was creating physical distance. When I tried to join their conversation about a recent project, he cut me off mid-sentence. "You wouldn't understand the technical aspects," he said with a laugh that didn't reach his eyes. "It's pretty complex stuff." The first sting. I worked in marketing for a tech startup. I understood plenty about complex projects, but I smiled and stayed quiet, not wanting to cause a scene. As the evening progressed, his comments became sharper, more pointed. When I mentioned my job, he rolled his eyes. "She works for one of those little startup companies. Nothing like what we do at corporate level, right, guys?" When I accidentally knocked over my water glass while reaching for bread, he sighed dramatically. "She's always been clumsy. I keep telling her to slow down and think before she moves." Each comment felt like a small cut, but I kept thinking this was just nervousness on his part. Maybe he was trying to impress his colleagues and didn't realize how his words were affecting me. The woman at the table, his supervisor apparently, looked increasingly uncomfortable, shooting me sympathetic glances. Then came the moment that changed everything. We'd just finished our entrees when he suddenly pushed back from the table and stood up. "You know what? I can't do this anymore." His voice was loud enough that people at nearby tables turned to look. "I've been thinking about this for weeks, and I'm done. We're done." The table went silent. I felt my face flush hot, then cold. "What are you talking about?" "This relationship. It's not working. I mean, look at you." He gestured dismissively in my direction. "You don't fit into my world. Tonight just proves it." I don't know what I was thinking, bringing you here with my colleagues. It's embarrassing. I couldn't speak, couldn't move, couldn't process what was happening. "Honestly, you should be grateful I stuck around this long," he continued, his voice getting crueler. "I mean, let's be real about what you bring to the table. You're not exactly, well, you know. And your job, your friends, the way you dress. It's all so ordinary. I'm moving up in the world, and I need someone who can move up with me." One of his colleagues cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Hey man, maybe we should—" "No, she needs to hear this. I've been too nice for too long." He looked directly at me, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Complete indifference. "You're not pretty enough for where I'm going. You're not smart enough, not sophisticated enough. I was doing you a favor dating you, and we both know it." The words hit like physical blows. I felt tears starting but refused to let them fall. "Not here, not in front of these people." "I'm leaving," he announced. "And before you ask, no, I'm not driving you home. Figure it out yourself." He grabbed his jacket from the back of his chair. "Oh, and the dinner's on you tonight. Consider it a breakup gift to me." Just like that, he was gone, walking out with 3 of his colleagues trailing behind him like uncertain puppies. Only the woman remained, her face red with embarrassment. "I am so sorry," she whispered. I had no idea he was going to. That was completely unacceptable. I nodded numbly, not trusting my voice. She squeezed my shoulder briefly before gathering her things and leaving, probably to do damage control with her team. I sat alone at the table for another 10 minutes, staring at the check that had been discreetly placed beside my plate. $312. More than half my monthly grocery budget for a meal I could barely taste through my humiliation. Somehow, I found the strength to pay and leave. I held myself together through the cab ride home, through walking up 3 flights of stairs to my apartment, through unlocking my door and setting down my purse. Only then, safely alone, did I finally let myself fall apart. My best friend found me the next morning still in yesterday's dress, sitting on my kitchen floor with my back against the refrigerator. I'd called her sometime around midnight, sobbing so hard she could barely understand me, and she'd driven over immediately with ice cream and tissues. "I keep replaying it," I told her, accepting the cup of coffee she pressed into my hands. The way he looked at me, like I was nothing, like I was something disgusting he'd stepped in. She sat down beside me on the cold linoleum. "He's a monster. You know that, right? What kind of person does that to someone they supposedly cared about?" "But what if he's right?" The words came out small and broken. What if I really am just ordinary? What if— Stop. Her voice was sharp. Don't you dare let that garbage into your head. You know what I think? I think he's projecting. I think he's the ordinary one and he knows it. I wiped my nose with a tissue. What do you mean? She was quiet for a moment, like she was debating something. Then she sighed. Okay, I wasn't going to say anything because I thought maybe I was being paranoid. But some things about him never added up for me. Like what? Like his job. For starters, he's supposedly this big shot executive, right? But every time you mentioned his office building, something felt off. So last month, when you said he worked at Meridian Financial on 5th Street, I happened to be in that area for a client meeting. My stomach started to twist. And? There is no Meridian Financial on 5th Street. I walked the whole block. There's a coffee shop, a dry cleaner, a small accounting firm, and a medical office. That's it. I stared at her. Maybe I got the address wrong? That's what I thought too. So I looked up Meridian Financial online. The company exists, but it's headquartered in Chicago. Their only office in this state is about 40 minutes outside the city, in some little strip mall. The coffee cup slipped in my hands. That doesn't make sense. He goes to work downtown every day. I've seen him in his suits with his briefcase. I drove out there too, she continued gently. It's tiny, like maybe 15 employees total. And when I called asking about their executive team, specifically about someone in business development, they had no idea who I was talking about. But the business trips. I started, then stopped. How many times had he mentioned important client meetings in other cities, conference presentations, strategy sessions with senior management? When was the last time he actually showed you anything work-related? A business card? A company email? Anything? I tried to remember. He was always vague about details, saying corporate policy prevented him from discussing clients or projects. I thought it showed professionalism. He said he couldn't talk about work because of confidentiality agreements. Confidentiality agreements for a financial services company in a strip mall? The room felt like it was tilting. So what are you saying? That he doesn't work where he says he works? I'm saying something isn't right. And after what he did to you last night, I think you deserve to know the truth. We spent the rest of the morning going through everything I could remember about his job. The stories that seemed impressive but were light on details. The business cards I'd never actually seen. The colleagues he'd mentioned but never introduced me to until last night. That afternoon, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Hi, this is Kevin from last night's dinner. The woman at the table is my boss and she gave me your number. She thought you might want to know some things about your ex-boyfriend. Could we talk? I showed the message to my best friend. Her eyes lit up. This is perfect. Someone from his actual workplace wants to tell you something. What if it's a trap? What if he put this person up to it? Then we'll find out. But what if it's not? What if this person has information that explains everything? I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to try to move on and forget the whole humiliating experience. But a bigger part of me needed to understand what had really happened. How had I been so wrong about someone I'd been with for 2 years? Okay, I finally said. Let's see what he has to say. I typed back, yes, I'd like to talk. When and where? The response came within minutes. Coffee shop on Main Street tomorrow at 2 p.m. And just so you know, everything he told you about his job was a lie. Everything! My hands were shaking as I set the phone down. Everything was a lie. 2 years of my life built on lies. My best friend squeezed my shoulder. We're going to figure this out, and whatever we find out, we're going to make sure you're okay. I nodded, but inside I was terrified. If he'd lied about his job, what else had he lied about? And more importantly, how had I been naive enough to believe it all? The call came while I was getting ready to meet the colleague at the coffee shop. I almost didn't answer. I was already nervous enough about what I might learn, but when I saw his mother's name on the caller ID, curiosity got the better of me. Sweetheart, her warm voice filled my ear. I hope I'm not calling at a bad time. I know you young people are always so busy with work. His mother had always been kind to me. She'd invited me to family barbecues, remembered my birthday, and often commented on how happy her son seemed since we'd started dating. Hearing her voice now made my chest tight with a different kind of pain. Hi, I managed. No, it's fine. What's up? Well, I wanted to call and make sure you knew about dinner on Saturday. It's his birthday, you know, and I'm making all his favorites. The whole family will be there. His sister is driving down from Portland, and even his uncle is coming in from the coast. My mouth went dry. Saturday, that was 3 days away. Oh, about dinner. I know you two had a little spat, she continued cheerfully. He mentioned you might have had some disagreement, but these things happen in relationships. The important thing is that you're both okay now. A little spat. That's what he'd called publicly humiliating me and abandoning me with $300 dinner bill. He seemed so excited when he called yesterday morning, she went on. He said you two have some big news to share with the family, and he wanted to make sure Saturday would be perfect for the announcement. The world stopped moving. Big news. What possible big news could we have to share? We'd just broken up. Unless— What kind of big news? I heard myself ask. Oh, he wouldn't say. You know how he likes his surprises. He just kept saying that Saturday was going to be a very special day for everyone, and that we should all be prepared for something wonderful. I sank onto my couch, my legs suddenly unable to support me. He'd called his mother the morning after destroying me in public. He told her we'd had a little spat, and that we had big news to share. Are you still there, dear? Yes, sorry. I'm just surprised he didn't tell me about calling you. Oh, you know how men are with planning, she laughed. He probably wanted to handle all the family coordination himself. He was so insistent that I make sure everyone would be there. Said it wouldn't be the same if anyone was missing. The whole family, I repeated numbly. His sister is so excited to see you again. And his father has been bragging to his golf buddies about how successful his son is, how well he's doing at work and in his personal life. We're all just so proud of him, successful at work. The lies just kept multiplying. I should probably go, I said. I have an appointment. Of course, sweetheart. I just wanted to make sure you knew to keep Saturday free. 6 o'clock sharp. And don't worry about bringing anything, just yourselves and that big news. After she hung up, I sat in silence for a long time. Then I called my best friend. He told his family we had big news to share, I said as soon as she answered. What? His mother just called about his birthday dinner on Saturday. She thinks we had a little spat and that we're announcing something big to the family. There was a pause. What kind of big news? She wouldn't say, but she seems to think it's wonderful news that will make everyone happy. Oh my God, my best friend breathed. Do you think he was going to propose at his birthday dinner? The thought made me nauseous. I don't know, maybe. Or maybe he was just setting up some other lie to make himself look good in front of his family. Either way, his whole family is expecting you to show up on Saturday with some kind of happy announcement. They have no idea he broke up with me. His mother thinks we're fine. So what are you going to do? I was quiet for a moment, thinking about his mother's excitement, about his sister driving down from Portland, about his father bragging to golf buddies about his son's success and happiness. I'm going to that dinner, I said finally. What? I'm going to show up on Saturday just like his family expects, and I'm going to tell them exactly what their son really did to me. I'm going to share some big news, all right. Are you sure that's a good idea? He humiliated me in front of his colleagues. He left me alone and hurt and stuck with a massive bill. And then he called his mommy and lied about it, making himself look like the victim of some minor disagreement. My voice was getting stronger as I spoke. His family deserves to know who they raised, and he deserves to face the consequences of his choices. Okay, she said slowly, but we're doing this smart. We're going in prepared. What do you mean? I mean, we're meeting with that colleague first. We're getting all the information we can about his lies. And then we're walking into that birthday dinner armed with the truth. For the first time since the restaurant, I felt something other than devastation. I felt determined. Saturday is going to be very special indeed, I said, just not in the way he planned. Kevin was waiting at a corner table when I arrived at the coffee shop, looking nervous and checking his phone repeatedly. He was younger than I'd expected, maybe mid-20s, with the kind of eager face that suggested he was relatively new to the corporate world. Thank you for meeting me, he said as I sat down. I've been thinking about Tuesday night nonstop. What he did to you was... He shook his head. I've never seen anything like it. Your boss seemed pretty horrified too. She was. She made us all stay after he left to discuss what had happened. She's actually considering whether to file a formal complaint with HR about his behavior, since it reflected poorly on the entire team. I wrapped my hands around my coffee cup, using the warmth to steady my nerves. So tell me about his job. How bad are the lies? Kevin took a deep breath. Okay, first thing you need to know. He's not an executive. He's not even close. He's an administrative assistant in the facilities department. Administrative assistant? He schedules conference room cleanings, orders office supplies, and handles maintenance requests. When people need the air conditioning fixed or want to report a broken coffee machine, they call him. I felt dizzy. But he talked about managing teams, about client presentations. The closest he gets to presentations is printing them out for other people. And the only team he manages is, well, nobody. He reports to a facilities manager who reports to someone else who reports to someone else who might eventually report to someone with actual decision-making authority. What about the business trips? Kevin grimaced. That's where it gets weird. He takes vacation days and tells everyone at work he's going to family events or personal appointments. But apparently, he was telling you he was traveling for business. So when he said he was in Denver for a client meeting last month, he used 2 vacation days. I remember because he asked me to water his desk plant while he was gone. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. A desk plant. A small succulent, named Gary. The absurdity of it all was overwhelming. While I'd been proud of his supposed business success, worried about him working too hard, impressed by his corporate achievements, he'd been watering a desk plant named Gary and fixing broken microwaves. There's more, Kevin continued quietly. The salary he probably told you he makes, administrative assistants in our department start around $38,000. With his experience level, he's maybe making 42, 45 tops. I thought about the expensive restaurants he'd occasionally taken me to, the designer clothes he sometimes wore. If he was making $45,000 a year, how was he affording any of it? Kevin, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Are you willing to help me expose these lies? He looked confused. What do you mean? His family is throwing him a birthday dinner on Saturday. They think we're still together, and they think we have some big announcement to make. They have no idea he broke up with me or how he did it. Oh, wow. I want to tell them the truth, all of it. But I need someone who can verify the details about his job, someone who actually works with him. Kevin was quiet for a long moment, clearly wrestling with the implications. You want me to show up at his family dinner? I want you to show up with some work-related reason to be there. Maybe you need him to sign some paperwork, or there's an urgent facilities issue that can't wait until Monday. That's pretty intense. What he did to me was intense. Humiliating someone publicly, abandoning them with a massive bill, then lying to his family about what happened. That's intense. He nodded slowly. You're right. And honestly, I've been wondering how long he'd get away with all the lying at work, too. People are starting to notice inconsistencies in things he says. So you'll help? I'll help. What do you need me to do? We spent the next hour planning. Kevin would show up at the family dinner around 7:30, giving me time to let some of the lies come out naturally first. He'd bring some facilities-related paperwork that would require his signature, something that would make it clear to everyone what his actual job responsibilities were. What about evidence of the lies? I asked. Do you have anything concrete I can show them? I can print out his job description, his org chart showing where he actually sits in the company hierarchy, and I can bring some of his actual work assignments from this week. Like what? Well, yesterday he spent 4 hours trying to figure out why the third-floor printer was jamming, and this morning he had to coordinate with building maintenance to fix a leaky sink in the women's bathroom on the second floor. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Then I remembered the look in his eyes when he'd called me ugly, the way he'd walked out leaving me alone and humiliated. That's perfect, I said. Bring all of it. As we were getting ready to leave, Kevin hesitated. Can I ask you something? How did you not know? I mean, after 2 years? I'd been asking myself the same question. I trusted him. When someone you care about tells you something, you want to believe them. And he was good at it. The lies were detailed and consistent. Plus, I was probably seeing what I wanted to see. I'm sorry this happened to you. Don't be sorry. Be there on Saturday with those papers. I spent the rest of the week gathering my own evidence. Text messages where he'd contradicted himself about work details. Photos from supposed business dinners that, now that I looked more closely, seemed to be taken in pretty standard restaurants. Stories that had seemed impressive at the time but made no sense when I really examined them. By Saturday afternoon, I had a clear picture of just how extensively he'd lied to me. The question now was whether I had the courage to follow through with exposing him to his family. I chose my outfit carefully. Not the fancy dress I'd worn to impress his colleagues, but something simple and dignified that made me feel confident. As I got ready, I kept thinking about his mother's excited voice talking about big news and special announcements. She was right about one thing. Saturday was definitely going to be special. Just not in the way anyone expected. His mother answered the door with the biggest smile, pulling me into one of her signature bear hugs before I could even say hello. There she is! Oh, sweetheart, you look lovely. Come in, come in. Everyone's so excited to see you. The house smelled like roast beef and birthday cake. Exactly the way it had during every family gathering I'd attended over the past 2 years. His sister waved at me from the kitchen where she was helping arrange appetizers, and his father called out a greeting from his recliner in the living room where he was watching golf highlights. It felt surreal being welcomed so warmly into this scene of domestic happiness when I knew what was coming. Where is he? I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. Upstairs getting ready. He should be down any minute. He's been so excited about tonight. I haven't seen him this happy about a birthday in years. That's when I heard footsteps on the stairs, and he appeared at the top of the landing. The moment he saw me, his face went completely white. He actually grabbed the banister like he might fall down the steps. Surprise! His mother called out cheerfully. Look who's here! He descended the stairs slowly, his eyes never leaving my face. I could see the panic building behind his expression, but he forced a smile as he reached the bottom. Hey, he said stiffly. I wasn't sure if you were coming. Of course she was coming, his sister laughed, joining us in the foyer. Why wouldn't she come to your birthday dinner? Especially when you two have big news to share. The muscle in his jaw twitched. Right, the big news. His mother clapped her hands together. I can barely contain my excitement. But first, dinner. Everyone to the dining room. The table was beautifully set with his grandmother's china and fresh flowers from his mother's garden. I found myself seated directly across from him, which meant I could watch every expression that crossed his face during the meal. So, his father said, carving the roast beef, tell us about work. Your mother mentioned things are going really well. This was it. This was where the lies would start flowing, and I'd get to watch him dig his own grave. Oh, you know, he said, glancing nervously at me. Same old stuff. Keeping busy. Don't be modest, his mother chided. Tell them about the promotion. My eyebrows shot up. Promotion? That's news to me. He shot me a warning look. It's not official yet. Still in the works. What kind of promotion? His sister asked, genuinely interested. Well, they're creating a new senior management position in my department. Something like Director of Strategic Development. I'd be overseeing a team of 12 people, handling major client relationships, that sort of thing. I took a sip of my wine to keep from laughing out loud. Director of Strategic Development. From the man who spent yesterday unclogging a sink. 12 people, I repeated. That's quite a jump in responsibility. It is, he agreed, but his voice was tight. The senior executives have been really impressed with my performance lately. Speaking of senior executives, I said casually, how was that dinner on Tuesday night? The one with your colleagues? The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. His mother looked confused. What dinner on Tuesday? Oh, just a work thing, he said quickly. Nothing important. Really? I tilted my head. It seemed pretty important to you. You were so eager to introduce me to everyone, to show off your professional relationships. His sister was looking back and forth between us like she was watching a tennis match. That sounds nice. How did it go? It was... He struggled to find words. It was fine. Just fine? I pressed. I thought it went much better than fine. Very memorable, actually. The kind of evening that really shows people who you are. Can we maybe talk about something else? He asked, but his voice was strained. His father set down his fork. Is everything okay between you two? You seem a bit... tense. Everything's perfect, I said brightly. Isn't it, honey? After all, we have that big announcement to make. The panic in his eyes was unmistakable now. He knew he was trapped, but he had no idea how to escape without revealing the truth about Tuesday night. Maybe we should wait until after dinner for announcements, he suggested weakly. Oh, I don't think I can wait that long, I replied. I'm just so excited to share our news with your family. Aren't you excited? His mother was practically bouncing in her seat. I can't stand the suspense. What is it? Actually, I said, checking my watch, we might have a visitor soon who can help us share our news properly. A visitor? His sister asked. Someone from his work. They should be here any minute, actually. The blood drained from his face completely. What are you talking about? Oh, didn't I mention? One of your colleagues needs to discuss something with you. Something about work. I told them they could find you here. He looked like he was going to be sick. His mother looked delighted. How wonderful. We get to meet more of your work friends. As if on cue, the doorbell rang. His father started to get up, but I was already standing. Don't worry, I said sweetly. I'll get it. After all, I'm expecting them. The look he gave me as I walked toward the front door was pure desperation. He knew exactly what was about to happen, and he knew there was no way to stop it. Happy birthday, I whispered as I passed his chair. I hope you're ready for your surprise. Kevin stood on the front porch holding a manila folder, looking exactly as nervous as I'd expected. Behind him, I could see his car in the driveway, a practical Honda that looked nothing like the luxury vehicles my ex had implied his colleagues drove. Perfect timing, I said loudly enough for the dining room to hear. Everyone's here for the birthday dinner? I led Kevin into the dining room where the entire family was staring curiously at this unexpected guest. My ex had gone completely pale, his hands gripping his napkin so tightly his knuckles were white. Everyone, this is Kevin, I announced. He works with the birthday boy. How nice, his mother exclaimed. Please, sit down. There's plenty of food. Oh, I can't stay long, Kevin said, playing his part perfectly. I just need to get some paperwork signed. There's a facilities issue that can't wait until Monday. Facilities? His father asked, looking confused. Kevin opened his folder and pulled out several official-looking documents. Yes, there's a problem with the HVAC system on the 3rd floor, and I need authorization from our administrative staff to approve the emergency repair costs. The silence that followed was deafening. Administrative staff? His sister repeated slowly. That's right, Kevin continued, either not noticing or choosing to ignore the family's confusion. As one of our admin assistants, he needs to sign off on any facilities expenses over $500. His mother's fork clattered onto her plate. Administrative assistant? I watched my ex's face cycle through several expressions. Panic, anger, desperation, and finally resignation. He knew the game was up. There must be some mistake, his mother said to Kevin. He's in management. He's about to be promoted to Director of Strategic Development. Kevin looked genuinely confused. I'm sorry, but there's no position like that in our company. And he's definitely not in management. He reports to our facilities manager who reports to the building operations supervisor. What exactly does he do? His father asked quietly. Well, he handles work orders for office equipment repairs, coordinates cleaning schedules, manages supply inventory. Oh, and this week he spent a lot of time troubleshooting printer issues and that sink problem in the women's restroom. His sister put her hand to her mouth. Printer issues? But what about his team? His mother asked weakly. The 12 people he manages? Kevin shook his head. He doesn't manage anyone. He's entry-level administrative support. The room was so quiet I could hear the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway. I think there's been enough confusion for one evening, I said, standing up. Kevin, thank you for bringing those papers by, but before you go, maybe you could help clear up another misunderstanding. Kevin looked at me uncertainly. Tell them about Tuesday night. About the dinner at Romano's Bistro. Oh, Kevin's face fell. That was really uncomfortable. What happened Tuesday night? His mother asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I took a deep breath. Your son took me to dinner with his work colleagues. In front of all of them, he told me I wasn't pretty enough for his future. He said I should be grateful he'd dated me as long as he had. He called me ugly, said I was too ordinary, too stupid, not sophisticated enough. His mother gasped. Then he announced he was breaking up with me, right there at the table in front of everyone. And when he left, he stuck me with a $312 dinner bill. That's not... His father started, then stopped, looking at his son. Is this true? My ex finally found his voice. It wasn't like that. She's exaggerating. I was there, Kevin said quietly. It was exactly like that. We were all horrified. My supervisor is still talking about filing a complaint with HR. And the next morning, I continued. He called you and told you we'd had a little spat and that we had big news to share. He's been lying to you just like he's been lying to me. His mother's eyes filled with tears. 2 years? You've been lying to us for 2 years about your job, about your relationship, about everything? You don't understand, he said, his voice getting desperate. I had to. Do you know what it's like being a failure? Do you know what it's like having everyone ask about your career and having nothing to show for it? So you made up an entire fake life? His sister asked, her voice shaking. And when that wasn't enough, you destroyed someone who cared about you? His father added, his disappointment evident. She was holding me back, he exploded suddenly. I couldn't move forward with her dragging me down. Everything about her was so ordinary. I needed someone who could match my ambitions. What ambitions? I asked. Fixing printers and unclogging sinks? You don't get it. None of you get it. He was shouting now, all pretense gone. I was trying to build something better. I was trying to become someone important. By lying to everyone who loved you, his mother whispered. By humiliating an innocent person, his father added. He looked around the table at his family's shocked faces, at Kevin holding the papers that proved his deception, at me sitting calmly in the midst of the chaos he'd created. This is all your fault, he said, pointing at me. You couldn't just leave it alone. You had to come here and ruin everything. I didn't ruin anything, I replied. I just told the truth. Well, congratulations, he snarled. I hope you're happy. He threw his napkin on the table and stormed toward the door. Don't call me, he shouted over his shoulder. Any of you. I'm done with all of this. The front door slammed so hard it rattled the windows. For a moment, nobody moved. Then his mother started to cry. Kevin cleared his throat awkwardly. I should probably go. I'm really sorry this happened during your family dinner. No, his father said firmly. You stay. You seem like a decent young man, and you've been more honest with us in 10 minutes than our son has been in 2 years. His mother was wiping her eyes with her napkin, trying to compose herself. I can't believe this. I just can't believe he would lie about everything. His job, your relationship, all of it. Mom, his sister said gently, reaching across the table to squeeze her hand. We all believed him. He was convincing. But how did I not see it? She asked, looking directly at me. How did I not know my own son was capable of treating someone so horribly? I felt an unexpected surge of sympathy for her. She looked genuinely devastated, like she was questioning everything she thought she knew about the person she'd raised. You couldn't have known, I said. He was very good at presenting different versions of himself to different people. His father set down his wine glass with more force than necessary. The business trips, the expensive clothes. Where was the money coming from if he's making what, $40,000 a year? Kevin shifted uncomfortably. I probably shouldn't speculate about personal finances. Credit cards, his sister said quietly. It has to be. He's probably drowning in debt. All for what? His mother asked. To impress people? To maintain some fantasy? To avoid feeling ordinary, I said. He told me once that his biggest fear was being forgettable, being just another person living a regular life. There's nothing wrong with a regular life, his father said gruffly. There's nothing wrong with honest work. Whatever it is. The dining room fell quiet again, but this time it wasn't the shocked silence from earlier. It was the heavy quiet of people processing a fundamental shift in their understanding of someone they loved. Well, his mother said finally, straightening her shoulders, we're not going to let this ruin the whole evening. Kevin, you're staying for cake. And you, she looked at me with fierce determination, your family as far as I'm concerned, no matter what my son did. Mrs. I started, then realized I was about to use her last name, which would break my naming rules. I appreciate that, but I should probably go. This has been a lot. Absolutely not, she said, standing up and beginning to clear dishes with renewed energy. It's still his birthday, even if he's not here to celebrate it. And more importantly, you've been through enough tonight. The least I can do is feed you some decent chocolate cake. His sister joined her mother in clearing the table. Besides, someone should enjoy all the work Mom put into making his favorite dinner. It was surreal. Sitting in the dining room of my ex-boyfriend's family home, eating birthday cake while they processed the fact that their son had been living a complete lie. But there was something oddly comforting about it too. For the first time in days, I wasn't alone with the weight of what had happened. I owe you an apology, his father said as his mother cut generous slices of chocolate cake. If I'd raised him better, if I'd taught him better values. This isn't your fault, I interrupted. He's an adult. He made his choices. Still, he continued, the way he treated you was unforgivable. And I want you to know that if you need anything, if he causes any problems for you, you call us immediately. Kevin was eating his cake and looking like he'd accidentally stumbled into an alternate universe. This is really good cake, he offered helpfully. His mother laughed through her tears. Thank you, dear. At least someone appreciates it. Can I ask you something? His sister said to me. Were there signs? Things that should have tipped you off? I thought about it while taking another bite of cake. Looking back, yes. But when you trust someone, you explain away the inconsistencies. He said he couldn't talk about work because of confidentiality. He said his company was very strict about employees sharing information. It seemed reasonable. And the money? He always had explanations. Work bonuses, family gifts, good investments. I never asked to see bank statements or pay stubs. Because you trusted him, his mother said softly. Because I trusted him, I agreed. Kevin had finished his cake and was looking more comfortable. If it helps, I don't think you were the only one he was lying to. There were always inconsistencies in what he told different people at work too. What do you mean? Well, he'd tell some people he was single, others that he had a girlfriend. He'd mention different hobbies or interests depending on who he was talking to. It was like he was always trying to figure out what version of himself would be most impressive to each person. His father shook his head. That's exhausting. Living like that must be exhausting. Maybe that's why he finally exploded. I suggested. Maybe maintaining all those different lies became too much work. Or maybe, his sister said, he finally met someone who wasn't willing to let him get away with it. I looked around the table at these people who had welcomed me so warmly, who had supported me even when it meant confronting painful truths about their own family member. Thank you, I said, for listening, for believing me, for the cake. His mother reached over and patted my hand. Thank you for having the courage to tell us the truth. We needed to know. As Kevin and I prepared to leave, his father pulled me aside. I meant what I said earlier. If he bothers you, if he tries to retaliate in any way, you call us. We may not be able to control what he does, but we can certainly make sure he knows his family won't tolerate any more of this behavior. Standing on their front porch, saying goodbye to people who felt more like family than the man I'd dated for 2 years ever had, I realized something had shifted inside me. The humiliation was still there. The hurt was still real. But underneath it all was something new. Relief. For the first time in days, I felt genuinely relieved. I woke up to my phone buzzing incessantly on the nightstand. The clock read 7:23 a.m., and when I grabbed my phone, the screen showed 13 missed calls from different numbers. My stomach immediately knotted with dread. The first voicemail was from his sister, her voice tight with worry. Call me back as soon as you get this. Something's happened with him, and we need to make sure you're okay. The second was from Kevin. Hey, I'm really sorry to bother you this early, but I've been getting some concerning messages. Can you call me when you get this? The third was from his mother, and she sounded like she'd been crying. Sweetheart, please call us. He's not handling last night well. We're worried about what he might do. My hands were shaking as I dialed his sister's number. Thank God, she answered on the first ring. Are you at home? Are you safe? I'm at home. What's going on? He completely lost it after he left last night. Completely. Mom and Dad called me around midnight because they were getting worried, but by then it was already too late. Too late for what? He went to a bar downtown and apparently spent 3 hours drinking and ranting to anyone who would listen about how his family and his girlfriend had betrayed him. The bartender finally cut him off, but instead of going home, he drove to his ex-girlfriend's apartment. Which ex-girlfriend? The one from college. The one who lives across town with her roommate. He showed up at their door at 2 a.m, completely drunk, demanding to talk to her. I sank onto my couch. Oh my God. It gets worse. When she refused to let him in, he started yelling in the hallway about how all women are liars and manipulators. Her roommate called the police, but before they got there, he was pounding on the door so hard the neighbors came out. Please tell me he's in jail. No, that's the problem. His ex-girlfriend's roommate knew me from high school, so she called me instead of pressing charges. I had to drive across town at 3 a.m. to pick him up. He was a complete mess. Crying 1 minute, raging the next. I felt sick. Where is he now? That's what I'm worried about. I took him back to his apartment, but this morning Mom got a call from one of his drinking buddies. Apparently, he spent the night sending text messages to a bunch of people. What kind of messages? Angry ones. About you, about the family, about his job. But the worst part is, he's been posting stuff on social media. I immediately opened my laptop and searched for his profiles. His Facebook page had 3 new posts from the early hours of the morning. The first was a rambling rant about toxic families and backstabbing relatives. The second was worse, a vague post about getting revenge on people who think they can destroy your life. But the third post made my blood run cold. It was my full address, posted with the caption, "Some people think they're so smart. We'll see how smart she feels when karma comes knocking." He posted my address, I told his sister, my voice barely above a whisper. "What? Are you serious?" "It's right here on Facebook," with some kind of threat about karma. There was silence on the other end of the line, then a string of words I'd never heard his sister use before. "I'm calling my parents right now," she said. "And then I'm calling him. This has gone way too far." "Wait, what about his job? Has anyone from work called you?" "Oh, right, I forgot to mention that part. Kevin called around 6 this morning. Apparently your ex sent some really inappropriate messages to several coworkers overnight. Something about how they were all going to regret making him look bad, and how he was going to make sure everyone knew what kind of people they really were. Is Kevin okay?" "Kevin's fine, but he's pretty shaken up. He said he's never seen anyone spiral this fast. He's planning to talk to his supervisor first thing Monday morning about getting security involved." After I hung up with her, I spent an hour screenshotting everything I could find on his social media before he potentially deleted it. The posts were getting increasingly erratic and angry. In addition to my address, he'd shared photos of me from our relationship with captions like, "This is what crazy looks like," and "Some people can't handle successful men." Successful men. Even in his breakdown, he was still living in his fantasy. My phone rang again. This time it was his mother. "Honey, I am so sorry. We had no idea he was capable of something like this. Have you talked to him? His sister is trying to reach him now. But he's not answering his phone. I think he turned it off after sending all those messages." "I'm scared," I admitted. "Posting my address online, talking about revenge. What if he actually shows up here? Then you call the police immediately. Do you hear me? Don't hesitate. Don't try to reason with him. Just call 911. This is insane. 3 days ago, I thought I knew him. Now I'm afraid he might hurt me." "You did nothing wrong," she said firmly. "Nothing. You told the truth and he can't handle it. But that's his problem. Not yours." Kevin called while I was talking to his mother. I told him I'd call him back, but his text message made me pause. Check his Instagram. It's even worse there. I didn't want to look, but I knew I needed to document everything. His Instagram stories from the past few hours were a timeline of his complete mental breakdown. Videos of him in his car at stoplights, ranting about betrayal and revenge. Photos of empty beer bottles with captions about drowning his sorrows. And most disturbing, a video taken outside what looked like my apartment building with the caption, "Soon." When had he driven by my building? Was he watching me right now? I called the police. The officer who answered listened patiently as I explained the situation. "Ma'am, we can't arrest someone for posting on social media. But given that he's posted your address and made what could be interpreted as threats, I'd recommend documenting everything and avoiding contact with him. What if he shows up at my apartment? Then you call us immediately. In the meantime, is there somewhere else you could stay for a few days? Just until things calm down?" I thought about my best friend's couch, about how this whole nightmare had started with me crying on her kitchen floor just a few days ago. "Yeah," I said. "I think I need to get out of here." As I packed a bag, my phone buzzed with one more message, this time from a number I didn't recognize. "You think you won, but this is just the beginning." I screenshotted that too, turned off my phone, and got the hell out of there. I'd been at my best friend's apartment for less than 12 hours when his mother and sister showed up at my door. My friend had given them the address after they called her, frantically trying to track me down. "We were so worried when you didn't answer your phone," his mother said, pulling me into a hug the moment I opened the door. "We needed to make sure you were safe." His sister looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept at all. "We've been dealing with him all morning." He finally answered his phone around 10, but he was completely incoherent. What did he say? A lot of rambling about how everyone had turned against him, how his life was ruined, how he was going to make sure everyone paid for what they'd done to him. She rubbed her temples. "But there's something else we need to tell you. Something we probably should have mentioned last night." My best friend brought coffee for everyone while we sat in her living room. I had the uncomfortable feeling I was about to learn something that would make everything even worse. "This isn't the first time," his mother said quietly. "The lying, the elaborate stories, the angry outbursts when he gets caught. We've been dealing with this pattern since college." "What do you mean?" His sister leaned forward. "In college, he told his roommates he was pre-med when he was actually majoring in communications. He kept it up for 2 semesters, even going so far as to carry around organic chemistry textbooks and complain about his lab work. How did they find out? One of his roommates mentioned it to a mutual friend who was actually in pre-med, and the friend said there was no one by his name in any of their classes. When confronted, he had a complete meltdown, accused everyone of being jealous, said they were trying to sabotage his future. His mother nodded sadly. And then there was the job situation after graduation. He told us he was working for a marketing firm downtown, but he was actually unemployed for 6 months. We only found out when his landlord called us asking about late rent payments. He was taking money from your family while unemployed? Not just taking, his sister said. Stealing. He forged a check from Dad's business account to pay his rent. We pressed charges, but then dropped them when he agreed to get therapy. Did the therapy help? For a while, maybe. Or maybe he just got better at hiding it. But there were always little inconsistencies, little lies about where he'd been or what he was doing. We started to just not ask too many questions. I felt nauseated. So when I met him 2 years ago, you knew he had problems with lying? His mother's eyes filled with tears. We hoped he'd changed. He seemed more stable, more honest, and he seemed so happy with you. We thought maybe being in a real relationship had helped him mature. We should have warned you, his sister said, but we wanted to believe he'd gotten better. And honestly, we liked you so much, we hoped you might be a good influence on him. My best friend, who had been listening quietly, finally spoke up. So this pattern of lies and then explosive anger when he gets caught, this is normal for him? It's escalated over the years, his mother admitted. The lies have gotten more elaborate, the anger more intense, but we've never seen him post someone's personal information online or make threats like this. Speaking of which, his sister said, pulling out her phone, there's something else you need to know. We went by his apartment this morning to try to talk to him face to face, and he wasn't there. His neighbor said he left around 8 a.m. carrying a duffel bag. But here's the concerning part. The neighbor also said he'd been asking questions about you yesterday. My blood went cold. What kind of questions? About your schedule, about whether you had a boyfriend, about where you worked. The neighbor thought it was weird because he'd never shown interest in talking before. He's gathering information about me. That's what we're afraid of, his mother said, which is why we think you should consider filing a restraining order. Before I could respond, my phone started buzzing. It was Kevin. I have to take this, I said, stepping into the kitchen. Are you somewhere safe? Kevin asked immediately. I'm at a friend's house. Why? Because he showed up at your apartment building about an hour ago. The security guard called me because he remembered me from when I picked you up for coffee last week. He was at my building? Apparently, he was in the lobby demanding to know which apartment was yours. When security told him he couldn't give out that information, he started yelling about how you'd stolen something from him and he needed it back. What did security do? They kicked him out and told him not to come back. But the guard said he seemed really agitated, kept talking about how you'd ruined his life and he wasn't going to let you get away with it. I walked back into the living room where his family was waiting anxiously. He went to my building, I announced. Security had to throw him out. His sister put her head in her hands. This is getting scary. It gets worse, I said, still holding the phone. Kevin, tell them what else you found. Kevin's voice came through the speaker. I checked his social media again this morning. He's posted more photos of her, some from what looked like their first few dates. But he's writing really cruel captions on them, calling her names, making fun of her appearance. He kept photos from our early relationship, I said, feeling violated in a whole new way. And now he's using them to humiliate me publicly. There's something else, Kevin continued. I talked to some other people at work, and they said his behavior has been getting stranger for months. Missing important deadlines, getting into arguments with supervisors, making inappropriate comments about female coworkers. So this breakdown didn't happen overnight, my best friend observed. Definitely not. It sounds like he's been spiraling for a while, and Saturday night was just the final straw. After Kevin hung up, we sat in silence for a moment, processing the scope of what we were dealing with. I think, his mother said finally, we need to consider the possibility that he's having some kind of mental health crisis. This goes beyond just being angry about getting caught in lies. Mental health crisis or not, his sister replied. He's crossed a line, posting her address, showing up at her building, making threats. This isn't just about hurt feelings anymore. What do we do? I asked. We document everything, my best friend said. Every post, every threat, every time he shows up somewhere he shouldn't be. And we make sure you're never alone until this calms down. His mother reached over and squeezed my hand. We're going to help you through this. Whatever it takes. This is our family's mess. And we're not going to let you deal with it alone. Looking around the room at these people who were rallying around me, his family who barely knew me, my best friend who'd dropped everything to help, even Kevin who was going out of his way to keep me informed, I realized something. In trying to destroy my life, my ex had accidentally revealed who the real villains and heroes were. And I wasn't as alone as I'd thought. The call came at 9:30 p.m. while I was helping my best friend make dinner. It was the security guard from my apartment building, and his voice was tense. Ma'am, I'm sorry to bother you, but that man is back. The one we escorted out this morning? He's in the lobby again, and this time he's not taking no for an answer. Through the phone, I could hear shouting in the background. His voice, unmistakably angry and slurred. What's he doing? He's demanding to know your apartment number. Says he has property of yours that he needs to return. But ma'am, he doesn't look good. He looks like he's been drinking and he's getting more agitated by the minute. Are you calling the police? That's what I told him I'd do if he doesn't leave voluntarily. But I wanted to check with you first. Are you expecting him? Is there any reason he should be here? Absolutely not. I don't want him anywhere near my building. Call the police if you have to. I could hear his voice getting louder in the background, and then there was a sound that made my stomach drop. The unmistakable noise of someone pounding on something hard. What was that? He just started hitting the glass doors to the residential area. Ma'am, I'm calling 911 now. I put the phone on speaker so my best friend could hear. She immediately started texting his sister while I stayed on the line with security. Sir, you need to step away from those doors, I heard the guard yelling. The police are on their way. Then I heard his voice clearer now, probably because he was yelling directly at the phone. I know she's listening. Tell her she can't hide from me forever. Tell her I'm not going away. He knows I'm on the phone, I whispered to my best friend. The sound of pounding resumed, but now it was different. Rhythmic and violent, like he was kicking something. Ma'am, he's kicking the door to the residential hallway. The lock mechanism is starting to come loose. Can you get him out of there? I'm not security. I'm just the night desk attendant. I'm not trained for this kind of situation. My best friend grabbed my shoulder. His sister is on her way. She's bringing their mother. How did they know? I texted them as soon as the guard called. They've been expecting something like this. Through the phone, I heard new voices arriving. His mother and sister from the sound of it. Thank God you're here, the security guard was saying. I was about to call the police. Don't call them yet, his mother's voice pleaded. Let us try to get him out of here quietly. Ma'am, he's been kicking the door for 10 minutes. The other residents are complaining, and honestly, I think he's having some kind of breakdown. I heard his sister's voice next. Come on, you need to leave. Now, before this gets any worse. I'm not leaving until I talk to her. His voice was raw, like he'd been shouting for hours. She destroyed my life. She turned everyone against me. You destroyed your own life, his mother said. And even through the phone, I could hear how exhausted she sounded. With the lying, with the drinking, with this behavior. This isn't her fault. Everything was fine until she showed up at dinner. Everything was fine until she started telling lies about me. They weren't lies, his sister said firmly. We talked to your coworkers. We saw your social media posts. None of what she said was a lie. There was a moment of silence, then the sound of something hitting the wall. He just threw something, the security guard reported to me. I think it was his phone. That's it, his mother said. We're leaving, right now, before I have to watch the police arrest my son. I'm not going anywhere. Yes, you are. His father's voice now, stern and brooking no argument. You're coming with us or you're going to jail. Those are your options. Dad? You heard me. You've embarrassed this family enough. You've scared an innocent woman. You've made threats, posted private information, and now you're vandalizing property. This ends now. The pounding stopped. Ma'am, the security guard said into the phone. They're taking him outside to the parking lot. Should I still call the police? Let me call you back, I said. Keep me posted if anything else happens. My best friend and I stood in her kitchen, listening to the silence that followed. After a few minutes, my phone rang again. It was his sister. We got him out of the building, she said, sounding drained. But it wasn't easy. Mom had to physically stand between him and the door while Dad basically dragged him to the car. Is he gone? For now, we're taking him back to his apartment. But honestly, I don't know if he should be alone tonight. He's not himself. This isn't just anger anymore. This is something else. Like what? I don't know. But he kept saying things that didn't make sense. Something about how you'd put a curse on him, how everyone was part of some conspiracy to ruin his life. He wasn't making rational connections between cause and effect. Should he be in a hospital? Maybe. We're going to try to get him to see someone tomorrow. But in the meantime, I need you to promise me you'll document everything that happened tonight. What do you mean? I mean, write down exactly what the security guard told you. What time it happened, what he said and did. If this escalates any further, you might need evidence for a restraining order or worse. Worse? I hope it doesn't come to that, but he's clearly not stable right now. And unstable people do unpredictable things. After she hung up, I spent an hour writing down everything I could remember from the past few days. The social media posts, the phone calls, the visits to my building, every threat and every disturbing message. By the time I was finished, I had 5 pages of documentation. This is insane, my best friend said, reading over what I'd written. 3 days ago, you didn't even know he was lying about his job. Now you're documenting stalking behavior. I keep thinking I should feel sorry for him. Mental breakdown, family intervention, clearly struggling with something bigger than just getting caught in lies. But But then I remember the look in his eyes when he called me ugly in front of his colleagues, the way he walked out and left me there. This might be a breakdown, but he was cruel long before he was unstable. You don't owe him sympathy just because he's having a hard time dealing with the consequences of his own actions. She was right. Whatever was happening to him now, it had started with a choice to humiliate and abandon me. Everything else was just fallout from that original cruelty. My phone buzzed with a text from the security guard. Building is secure. Change the entry codes just in case. We'll keep extra watch tonight. I realized I was shaking. Not from fear exactly, but from the adrenaline of knowing that someone I'd once trusted had just spent 10 minutes violently trying to get to me. The person I'd thought I knew for 2 years was gone. In his place was someone I didn't recognize at all. Kevin called me on Wednesday morning with news I'd been expecting but somehow still felt shocked to hear. He didn't show up to work Monday or Tuesday, Kevin said. And yesterday morning, our HR director found some really inappropriate emails he'd sent to several coworkers over the weekend. What kind of emails? Rambling messages about betrayal and conspiracy, accusations that people were plotting against him, some pretty nasty personal attacks on anyone who was at that dinner last week. He sent one to my supervisor calling her unprofessional names and threatening to report her to corporate for harassment. I was sitting in my own apartment again. I'd moved back home Tuesday morning after his family assured me he was staying with them and under supervision. So they fired him? Immediately. HR called it a termination for cause due to threatening behavior toward colleagues. They've also banned him from the building and notified security to escort him out if he tries to return. How do you feel about that? Honestly, relieved. A lot of people were getting uncomfortable with his behavior lately, but nobody wanted to say anything because he seemed so volatile. Now we don't have to worry about what he might do next. After Kevin hung up, I realized this was probably the first consequence that might actually get through to him. He could dismiss his family's disappointment, ignore my hurt feelings, even rationalize his own behavior. But losing his job was concrete and undeniable. His mother called that afternoon to update me on the situation. We've moved him back into his old bedroom, she said, sounding exhausted. He can't afford his apartment without income. And honestly, we don't trust him to be alone right now. How is he handling the job loss? Not well. He's alternating between rage and self-pity. Yesterday, he spent 4 hours explaining to his father why everyone at his company was jealous of his success and had conspired to get him fired. Does he still think he was successful there? That's the strangest part. Yes, he does. Even after everything that came out at dinner, even after Kevin brought those papers proving what his actual job was, he still insists that he was being groomed for management and that his firing was just office politics. I didn't know what to say to that. How do you respond to someone who's that disconnected from reality? We've made an appointment with a therapist, she continued, but we had to threaten to kick him out before he agreed to go. And how is he? Is he still trying to contact me? That's actually why I'm calling. We took his phone away after we found out he'd been creating fake social media accounts to message you, but before we did, we saw some of what he was sending. My stomach dropped. I haven't gotten any messages recently. We think we caught it in time, but some of them were concerning. Apologies mixed with anger, promises to make things right, followed by accusations that you'd ruined his life. Very erratic, very unstable messaging. I thought about the blocked numbers and fake profiles that had been trying to reach me over the past few days. I'd been deleting them without reading, but apparently I'd been wise to do so. Is he getting help? The therapist says it might take months to untangle everything. The lying, the grandiose self-image, the inability to accept responsibility. It's all connected to some deeper issues that probably go back years. A week later, I had an encounter that drove home just how far he'd fallen. I was grocery shopping on a Saturday afternoon when I saw him in the produce section. For a moment, I didn't recognize him. He looked like he'd lost weight, his clothes were rumpled, and there was something defeated about the way he was standing there staring at apples like he couldn't remember why he was there. When he saw me, his whole body went rigid. We were maybe 10 feet apart, and for a few seconds neither of us moved. I was prepared to leave immediately if he approached me, but instead he looked away quickly and hurried toward the exit, abandoning his shopping cart in the middle of the aisle. I watched him leave through the store windows. He sat in what I assumed was his mother's car for several minutes with his hands on the steering wheel, just staring straight ahead. There was no trace of the confident, successful executive he'd pretended to be, or even the angry, threatening person he'd become after the dinner. He just looked lost. His sister texted me later that evening. Mom said you ran into him at the store. I hope that wasn't too uncomfortable. I texted back. He looked pretty rough. Is he okay? Physically, yes. Mentally, it's going to be a long road. The therapist thinks he's been living in fantasy for so long that facing reality is like withdrawing from a drug. But he's starting to understand that his behavior was unacceptable. Has he said anything about me? He stopped talking about you entirely, which the therapist says is actually progress. For a while, he was obsessed with the idea that you were the source of all his problems. Now he's starting to focus on himself. Over the following weeks, the messages and social media posts stopped completely. His online presence seemed to vanish entirely, which his sister later confirmed was part of his therapy. No social media, no internet access beyond what was necessary for job hunting, and supervised phone use. I kept all the screenshots and documentation, just in case. But gradually I stopped checking over my shoulder when I left my apartment. The security guard at my building reported no more incidents. Even Kevin said the workplace had returned to normal, with no one mentioning the incident or asking questions about what had happened. It was strange the way someone could go from consuming so much mental energy to simply disappearing from your daily reality. For weeks after the birthday dinner, I'd been constantly alert, constantly waiting for the next crisis. Now, suddenly, there was just silence. I'd expected to feel relieved when the harassment stopped, and I did. But I also felt something I hadn't expected. A kind of hollow sadness for the person I'd thought I was in love with, who had never really existed at all. The confident, successful, caring man had been a complete fabrication. In his place was someone so fragile and delusional that facing the truth had caused a complete breakdown. I wasn't sad about the breakup anymore. I was sad about the 2 years I'd spent loving a ghost. 3 months later, I was hanging new artwork in my completely redecorated apartment when my phone rang. I'd painted the walls, bought a new couch, rearranged everything so thoroughly that even the light felt different. It was like living in a space that had never known him at all. It was his mother calling, which had become a monthly occurrence since everything happened. She'd taken it upon herself to keep me updated, partly out of genuine care and partly, I suspected, out of guilt for what her son had put me through. "I wanted to let you know," she said without preamble. "He's moving to Oregon next week." I set down the hammer I'd been using to hang pictures. Oregon? His uncle lives outside Portland. He's offered him a job at his landscaping company and a place to stay. But there are conditions. He has to continue therapy. He has to stay off social media completely, and he can't come back here for at least a year. How do you feel about that? Relieved, she admitted. It's been 3 months, and he's made some progress in therapy. But he's still, fragile isn't the right word. Volatile, maybe. Last week he had a complete meltdown when his job interview at the hardware store didn't go well. Started ranting about how the manager was probably friends with someone from his old company. He's still blaming other people? Less than before. But yes, the therapist says that level of self-awareness takes time to develop, especially when someone has been avoiding reality for as long as he has. I walked over to my window and looked out at the street below. "Can I ask you something? Are you cutting him off financially?" "We've had to. We told him we'd pay for his therapy and help with basic living expenses, but only if he stays in treatment and follows the rules his uncle sets. No more enabling his fantasies or bailing him out of problems he created himself. That must be hard for you." It is. But we realized that our desire to help him was actually making things worse. Every time we fixed a problem for him or made excuses for his behavior, we were helping him avoid the consequences of his choices. After she hung up, I sat in my newly arranged living room thinking about consequences and choices. In the month since the birthday dinner, I'd had a lot of time to reflect on the relationship and what it had really been. Kevin had become an unexpected friend through all of this. We'd started meeting for coffee occasionally, not romantic, just two people who'd been through something weird together and found they actually got along well. He told me more about the workplace dynamics I'd never seen, the small lies and inconsistencies that had made people uncomfortable long before I'd entered the picture. "You know what's funny?" he'd said during our most recent coffee date. "I think everyone at work was relieved when the truth came out. Not because they wanted him to get fired, but because they could finally stop pretending his stories made sense." "What do you mean?" "Like when he'd talk about managing big projects, but then he'd ask really basic questions about things any manager would know. Or when he'd mention traveling for business, but then he'd have no idea what cities his supposed clients were located in. People noticed, but nobody wanted to call him out directly. It made me think about my own experience, about all the times I'd had a nagging feeling that something didn't add up. But I'd pushed the feeling aside because I wanted to believe him. Love, I'd learned, could be a form of willful blindness. But there was something else I'd learned over these past months. Something more important than just recognizing red flags or trusting my instincts. I'd learned that I was stronger than I'd thought. The woman who'd sat crying in that restaurant, who'd felt so humiliated and small, had found the courage to expose the truth and protect herself from further harm. The irony wasn't lost on me that his attempt to make me feel ordinary and unremarkable had actually revealed something extraordinary in myself. The strength to demand honesty, to refuse to accept unacceptable treatment, and to build a support network of people who valued the truth. I'd also learned something about real success versus the kind he'd been chasing. Kevin was successful. He was honest, reliable, and genuinely respected by his colleagues. His mother and sister were successful. They'd raised difficult questions, faced painful truths, and taken action to help their family member while also protecting innocent people. My best friend was successful. She'd dropped everything to support someone in crisis without expecting anything in return. Real success, I'd realized, had nothing to do with job titles or impressive stories. It was about integrity, authenticity, and how you treated people when you had the power to hurt them. A few weeks later, I got a text from his sister. He left for Oregon this morning. I wanted you to know he won't be back in the area for a long time. I typed back, I hope he gets the help he needs. Me too. And I hope you know how grateful we are for everything you did. It couldn't have been easy, but you probably saved him from an even worse breakdown down the road. I stared at that message for a long time. In trying to destroy me, he'd accidentally forced a reckoning that might ultimately save him. And in surviving his attempt to destroy me, I'd discovered reserves of strength and self-respect I hadn't known I possessed. 6 months earlier, if someone had told me my boyfriend was living a complete lie and would eventually have a public breakdown that would expose everything, I would have been terrified. I would have assumed I'd be devastated, humiliated, broken. Instead, I was sitting in my beautiful new apartment, surrounded by friends who'd proven their loyalty, with a job I was good at and hobbies I enjoyed, feeling more authentically myself than I had in years. He'd been wrong about me in the most fundamental way. I wasn't ordinary or forgettable or something to be ashamed of. I was someone who could handle the truth, who could demand better treatment, who could build a real life based on real relationships with real people. And that, as it turned out, was actually quite extraordinary.